Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dee Reinhardt with Illinois WorkNet. I am your project manager for the Illinois Employment and Business Services website, IEBS for short. Those of you in the system may know what's going on, and we're going to talk a little bit today about case notes and what we've discovered as some best practices for writing case notes. And some of this may apply to regular case management, but a good case note is a good case note, no matter what. So first of all, we're going to tell the story in case notes. We want to know what case notes are. We want to know why we write them, and we want to know how we can tell the story best. And my adage here is, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Case notes shouldn't be kept a secret. They need to tell a story that any reader can appreciate. So it's not like, ooh, whispering in somebody's ear. It's actually putting it out there for everybody to know and love. Case notes are a recording of an interaction. They document success or failure and may include some uploads, conversations from appointments, all sorts of different things that can tell the whole story. We have some do's and don'ts. We want to make sure that our terminology is professional, as well as our capitalization and punctuation. We want to make sure that we're addressing the relevant details. Everything is based on fact. Observations are facts. If you see something, you can write about it. Leave out opinions and make sure that you spell out acronyms. I know I've worked with the state agencies for many years now, and it is acronym heaven. And there's a lot of people that just don't know what that means, or there are other uses for that same acronym. So spell it out. Don't use slang or street language. If you use metaphors, it can confuse things. So just say what you mean directly. Don't write in code so that nobody understands it. Don't write personal details that don't impact anything. And avoid using PII when you're talking about individuals. You want to make sure that they're clear. Any reader can understand what's being said. The case notes should be written in full sentences. So we've got an example down at the bottom here, and it says, this writer spoke with Mary Smith regarding her paid work experience activities at senior care homes. Mary indicated that she is fitting in comfortably and refreshing all skills learned in training. And it was submitted by Jane Smith. Brevity is advised, so be concise. A good example would be, Shalandra completed adult basic education training today with a 97%. And a poor example is, she completed ABE today. So some of these case notes have to do with actual case notes, case management, but a good note is a good note. You want to make sure that the information that you put in there is useful. Don't be subjective with your opinions. Make sure that things are based on theory or research that you have done.
Dee, are you showing something?
Oh, I thought I was.
I don't have it. Does anyone else have it?
Hang on, let me try this again. All right, so we're useful.
There you go.
Thank you for that. We're useful if the facts are related to the activity and interactions. They're relevant if they have a direct relationship to the case note being entered. If a comment does not impact the activity being recorded in the case note, it shouldn't be included. Now I gotta go back now, because I gotta show you all of my graphics here that we were talking about. So telling the case note in story. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. Case notes shouldn't be kept a secret. They need to tell a story. defined. It can be an interaction with any customer or client, and it covers success or failures based on these particular items. Do's and don'ts, I'll just leave this up on the screen here for a moment since we already covered it. They should be clear and concise, useful and relevant. So a good example here, or a poor example here, is Mary's sister called to report that Mary was doing drugs and rammed into a semi-truck. She's going to be in rehab for 6 weeks. She recuperates from the surgery to repair the broken bone in her femur. That's like way too much information that's not actually relevant to the actual case noting. We want to make sure that they're timely. They happen as soon as you can get them entered, if not at the moment that you're having the conversation. They're identifiable. So if not automatically included, add the date and time and who wrote the case note, just so that there's clarification in case you move on from a position or move up and somebody else is taking over the items for you. Frequency and audience helps depend upon how you write your case notes and when, and how you write the story based on who the audience is. It will make a little bit of a difference, but for somebody like me that has to maybe go in and help an organization with their concerns about something, it helps me to have a full picture, because I have to see, okay, well, can I delete this? Can I move this? So all of that, keeping track of things properly, really helps me a lot. Case notes are kind of like a press release. You want to tell the who, what, when, where, why, how, and what are the next steps for that? What is your plan of action moving forward? Pulling it all together, we want to talk about who did the contact involve. If the information isn't included in a case record, include all of the relevant information for all the parties involved. When did the contact occur? When should it have occurred? When are you documenting the, and then what is the reason for the case note? What activity or lack of activity precipitated the case note? Where did the action take place that you're talking about in the case note? Is it relevant? Is it useful? Why? Why are you writing the case note? Is it useful to note the reasons for the case note being written? And how something is going to be executed should be included. Now, here's a couple of examples. This is actually from some case management work, but I highlighted in color the who, what, when, where, why, how, and next steps. So if you look at this and take a look at, read it yourself, I'm not going to read them out loud, but it talks and covers all of the different items associated with those case notes. Now, what type of case note should I choose? When we're talking about IEBS, we need the differences between an investigation, a background, general information, layoff changes, official notice for a warn, or a supplemental notice. Those are the different types of case notes that you can write in IEBS. Words that are useful and words to avoid. You want to make sure that you're writing with those useful words. And a resource, you can always find our partner page at IEBS. And these are some of the resources that I used to get the information for the actual presentation. So now, just to show you, in IEBS, we have our a business, And to access the notes, you can find it either from the menu on the left-hand side of the page and go down there, or else you can scroll down through. And then if you add a note, you can type in your subject, you can type in your text, you can add files, and we have a what type of documentation are you actually going to do? Now, Levi was going to be on this call with me, and I don't see him in the call. So, Martha, would you like to talk just a moment or two about how these different types of documentation could be best used?
Yeah, I'll give it a try. Under investigative, I usually put in like, we received a warn notice. The company has been notified. Well, the company has been contacted, and maybe waiting for a call back, or if you've talked to the business and you could put in that conversation in investigative. Background and general information. Background, I don't know, just
I would say background would be something that you found, maybe it was something from a
previous layoff.
newspaper or something that it's background of the event. Maybe it was a series of layoffs and the background was the initial one happened in 2015 and now these are happening now.
Yeah. And general information, it's kind of the same thing. It's just general information you may receive, like even if they haven't responded, they haven't called you back, you could put that in there. Anything that continues the story. I usually put updates there. Layoff changes, that's kind of obvious if there's any change in the layoff. You usually have a layoff date in the warn notice. If that's changed, been pushed back or pushed up, you could put it in there. And a lot of times it changes the schedule of the event. The official warn notice would be, I would upload the warn notice and indicate when you received it. And again, you could indicate that you have contacted the business. Any supplemental information, that would be, they may change it. Again, they may change the layoff. You could have this layoff over a period of a year. And in the supplemental information, they always report it, what's coming up. So you could include that information, upload the supplemental letter in there. So it's really to document any changes that have been made.
Great, thank you for filling in those ideas there for me. I appreciate that. So are there any questions about case notes?
Did that make sense on what I said? They're kind of broad categories. But again, you're telling the story.
Right. All right. So we're supposed to be talking about customized lists, and
So
All
if you developed a list, Dee, what would you use that for?
it would be, in most cases, if you can export a list of 250 organizations. But
Oh,
if
yeah.
you create a custom list, you can pick and choose who you want to be in your list. I do know that maybe you want to have people just from your specific region, or maybe if you're trying to avert layoffs, you might want to have a list of different areas where you can keep those lists. So it's a really good use. And I apologize for not being able to show you. It's just eluded my brain right now. And under outreach, it's under outreach. We have lists, and we can make a list of energy companies, or we can make a list of banks, or we can make a list of whatever organization. So we can create a new list, and I can say banks. And this is local or regional banks in my area. And we're going to save this. And now what I can do is I can also save things for projects as well. But now if I'm going to search and I want to look for banks, we have no active layoffs in banks. So maybe I'm going to look for companies, and I'm going to look for an industry. So let's find finance and insurance. And I'm going to look for public companies. And on this, I can now add this to my banks list. And that would then help me determine which companies are available to you. So if I'm going to go down CME, I want CME, add to banks. I want equity distribution, acquisition. So you can pick them from different areas. And if you don't want all 5,000 of whoever's in here, so like this is 68, I maybe only want companies that have a certain level of growth. So I can add these to my list, and they're available for me to use. So then if I go back to my companies, and if I go up to the top, I can look at my lists, and it gives me a list. So here's my banking list. And then if I go to my energy companies, I can see just my energy companies, or if I go to my banks, I can see just my banks. Mm-hmm. So you can filter your organizations by the type of industry that you want them in. You can pick, maybe you pick banks again, but you make a small business bank. So for those local banks, and the public companies might be the big monster banks that are in your area. So that is one way to use those lists. Martha, can you think, or Chelsea or Carmela or Carmine or Kristen, anybody, any of you think of how you might be able to take advantage of these custom lists?
They're helpful for reports if, someone wants to like look at all the banks in Elwea 20, you could pull that up. I guess you could add it to a list. I think it'd be really good for business services to use that as they outreach to those companies.
Oh, yeah.
Because it shows you what their company health is and what they may need, what type of services they may need.
Can anybody else think of anything? Carmela?
Yeah, I'm just thinking with WorkShare, when we're talking about companies who are closing or things of that nature, we might want to find similar companies that are utilizing the same product or the same industry, which may be a help for people that are being dislocated and provide them a list. This company is, does the same product as you do, and do some research to find out if that company is hiring. That way, that can be some type of, I wouldn't call it layoff aversion, but some reemployment initiatives.
Yes, very good. Very good.
Yeah, I think that would be layoff aversion, you know?
Can anyone else think of an opportunity here?
I think too, it could be helpful if local workforce agencies wanted to expand like their work experience or on-the-job training to see what types of businesses are in their, local workforce area.
Yes, yes. They could sort them out by industry.
Right.
Yeah.
I just have a question, and you may not know how to do it, but or if it's possible, but whenever you are searching for companies and you're adding it to the list, is there any way to bulk add, or do you have to add it one by one?
I don't know about the bulk upload. I can ask about that and see if there's a way. But see, what's happening is you're looking for the companies from our companies here. So this is where they get added to the list. So if I'm looking in here and I want to see my list.
There's some way you could do like download it to an Excel spreadsheet.
You can export them, yes,
Yeah.
but you can't bulk upload because all of this information is coming from Dun & Bradstreet. So
Other than filtering it, not that I'm the expert, but.
right, yeah, you could filter, but then you'd have to go through and you'd have to say add to list, add to list, add to list.
Oh, I see.
I at least I
Okay.
think that's what you were asking, right?
Yeah, but yeah, that's just a really easy, quick shortcut to get them to add. Once you have the list created, then if you're searching for your industry or whatever, you can just go through those down arrows. It's would be relatively quick to add.
Correct, correct.
And I also agree with what Carmela stated, is this being a great tool to support the workshop program. And by filtering it according to industry, if there's an industry that's suffering, you could utilize the list that's generated from the filter to determine a lead list to promote government funded programs such as the workshop program.
Ooh, lead lists. I like that term.
And to piggyback on that, Carmine, too, local workforce areas can look at it for the, look at the same things that maybe, the companies aren't doing so well, look at maybe some worker training.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So like a decrease in scale here.
Yep.
You could go through and put all of the decrease in scale people in a list. If you needed to.
Yep.
And maybe just reach out to them and not to hit them while they're down, but say, is there anything that we might be able to help you with, sort of thing.
Mhm.
Right. We'll be back in 2 weeks on October. Oh my goodness, it's already October. And I just found a way to send out a notification to everybody more easily than sending through Chris Tylen. So I will be sending out those notifications myself in the future. So thank you for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Dee.
Bye.
Bye-bye.